Wes Goldberg, happy Thursday to All-Star. We find out tonight who All-Stars are going to be. So today's show, a big part of it, is going to be picking our West All-Stars, beating the deadline. But we got to start with a bit of NBA media rights broadcasting news. And that's Mike Tirico is going to be the lead play-by-play announcer for NBC's NBA coverage. I forgot this, and I think many people may have as well, or may have not been fans at that point, that Tirico actually used to do do some ESPN NBA for over a decade before he went to NBC, and he's been obviously more of a football voice and Olympics voice there more than anything else. But Mike Tirico as the lead announcer for NBC's NBA coverage, do you like it? Are you excited about this pick? What are you surprised? Any takes you have about this?
Excited feels like a strong word for a play-by-play guy. Mike Tirico is really solid. He's very good. Does a great job. With the football side of things, very prepared, and yeah, it's funny to kind of see guys go to NBC. We've got Kevin Harlan. It was announced, I think, going to Amazon and what they're doing, and so you've kind of got all these. It was very similar to what kind of happened with Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football in the NFL a couple of years ago, where you had those teams split with Amazon kind of getting Thursday Night Football, and then Al Michaels goes over there for Thursday nights. And so we're sort of in that period now for the NBA. It'll take some getting used to, right? I think we're just used to, maybe more in the NBA than the NFL, some of these broadcast teams and pairings changing. Like, it wasn't that long ago that we had Mike Breen, Jeff Van Gundy, and Mark Jackson. And I kind of like those guys. It kind of just felt like you were listening to a podcast while watching the game. And I kind of enjoyed that. And then that gets switched also. You have JJ Redick, who, people liked him last year, and then he leaves to take the Lakers job. And so in the NBA, we're getting these guys moving around all the time. But I guess to your point, the headliner here is that Mike Tirico returns to the NBA, and just having another good, solid guy along with Harlan, who does some NFL work also, along with Ian Eagle, who's great at everything he does. Like, you're getting and Mike Breen obviously still being a part of it. Like, you're getting the guys that you like involved.
Yeah, none of these broadcast partners are breaking the wheel, which I think is very intentional. I think where I'm curious with NBC is what they do auxiliary of Tirico, right? And Wes, by the way, I'm telling you this now before we come through, and our listeners, there is some Jimmy Butler, not trade related, but Jimmy Butler breaking news we're going to get to right after this intro. So I'm telling you that's coming. A little tease. That literally just came through. Jamal Crawford is signed there. I think he's been really good every time I've seen him. I kind of want them to just throw him to the deep end and see how he does calling games. Maybe there's a three-man booth with Reggie Miller. We'll see. I also hope that the Noah Eagle, Dwayne Wade Olympic, like, even if it's not all the time, I think that should be part of the Peacock NBC offering. That was one of the highlights of how the Olympics were covered to me. Tirico's going to give you this, tell you things are important, communicate things will be very well researched. He's going to keep your ship online. But all the other auxiliary stuff, I hope one of these companies, I mean, frankly, Amazon's doing this a little bit too with Blake Griffin and Dirk Nowitzki. Like, there's their own thing going on there where they've kind of gone off a little bit different way, but I hope NBC does their version of that, particularly with Jamal Crawford, who I think is quite good. So I'm excited about that. But graphics, there's all these things. I want to see how it feels and how it looks and what the presentation looks like.
Yeah, that part's exciting. How they sort of revamp the round rock ball and all that kind of stuff. Yes. It'll be fun. Yeah.
And like, does it feel like, how different does it feel to TNT? Do they model it off for ESPN to keep a familiar format? I think there's an argument to be made that, like, considering the discourse on NBA ratings and the marketing of the NBA, there probably is room to experiment. So I hope one of these companies does. I think Amazon's probably going to look a lot like Thursday Night Football, so maybe NBC and Peacock is, and maybe there's something from like how they do the Premier League that is work that they can take. And all these companies have lots of information at their fingertips to make these decisions. So I am curious to see what it's going to look like come next year. All right, on today's show, we've got some NBA trade stuff, and we've got All-Stars. Jimmy Butler, who's at the center of the trade stuff, is going to be our first point of conversation right after this. Let's get into today's episode of the Just Basketball Show.
LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Chris Manning and Wes Goldberg here. Wes, we'll tell everyone about BetMGM in a minute, but I want to just get into this Jimmy Butler thing right away. Suspended 2 games per Shams Charania of The Athletic. did not go on a team flight, was going to meet the team where they're going, but flew separately. But this was one of the things that came up with the Ramona Shelburne story, that he will fly differently than everyone else, and the Heat have suspended him for 2 games. As someone who covers this team, has for a long time, Locked On Heat, All You Can Heat, knows the Heat better than anyone that I know, Wes. What's your reaction to this latest development in the Jimmy Butler saga?
Hard to get injured if you're not playing, if you're suspended games, right? So, look, this is one of those things that isn't new for Jimmy Butler or his behavior. He was treated like a star in Miami. It hadn't been a problem when he was playing like a star. Now that he was no longer playing like a star, A, and then B, demanded to get traded, the Heat aren't going to put up with some of this stuff. Now, is Jimmy Butler the best employee? No, he's not winning employee of the month anytime soon right now. And so the fact that he misses a flight, he doesn't care. We obviously know that the news Tuesday night that the Suns trading a first-round pick for 3 first-round picks from Utah kind of greases the wheels one step closer to perhaps acquiring Jimmy Butler in a trade. Jimmy Butler wearing Phoenix Suns colorways of his sneakers to Tuesday night's game. Yeah. Like, Jimmy knows, or at least has a sense of what he thinks is happening here and what he thinks might be coming here. So it's not surprising that he would miss a team flight for a team that he feels like he might not be a part of very much longer. And then the Heat, like I said, not always a problem when Jimmy Butler takes separate flights for whatever reason. By the way, just for the record, like, the difference between this and what Shelburne was talking about and reporting is the Heat would usually know if Jimmy Butler was not going to be on the flight. In this sense, it sounds like, and this just happened, so we don't have a ton of reporting on this, and I've done 0 reporting on this because this literally happened while we were recording.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound like this was like a planned separate flight. This sounds like he just didn't make it. I do know that the team was supposed to leave this afternoon from Milwaukee for their game on Thursday night. So, yeah, I mean, they're just not going to put up with it the way that they used to put up with things before, right? Because he doesn't want to, he's not playing like a star. He doesn't want to be with the team anymore, all these things. But also because, and most importantly, they are trying to actively trade him right now. And it was a little weird that he was even playing in the first place while being the part of trade rumors. Like, I think every time he was in the paint going up for a layup or kind of trying to get a rebound, he wasn't the most active guy, but he was still out there. You were probably a little queasy if you were Heat brass and being like, just don't roll an ankle, don't screw this up for us. Now there's 0 chance of that happening, at least for 2 games.
Yeah, look, a trade feels inevitable. This relationship feels broken, beyond repair. It probably already did. Probably already was. There's no going back at this point. Like, he has to be traded, and I would imagine it has to happen relatively soon. I would venture to guess he has played his last game for the Miami Heat. I don't know how Jimmy Butler, whether he's traded by the end of the suspension or not. And Wes, they play Thursday, and then Wednesday. When will be the second game? Saturday?
They play one over the weekend, and then the 2 games are on the road in Brooklyn, in Milwaukee Thursday, over the weekend in Brooklyn, and then Monday night, Saturday in Brooklyn, and then on Monday night they play the Magic at home, which technically Jimmy Butler could be eligible for. So they essentially suspended him for the road trip. Said, you missed the flight, don't even get on one, don't meet us on the road. If you do ever play for us again, it will be in Miami.
It feels like Jimmy Butler's played his last game for the Heat, is how I'm reading this. It means we're getting a trade. I don't know if it's going to be Thursday. I don't know if it's going to be Friday. I don't know when this is going to be, Wes. With everything happening with the Suns, with the subliminal messaging, there's a lot of things I think about the mechanics of this trade that we don't really know as of yet. But they just feel like they're closer to getting figured out than we were. I mean, Sam Amick of The Athletic reported on Wednesday or late Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the days, that the Suns were more confident. Like, it was more likely that a Jimmy Butler trade to Phoenix was going to happen at this point. And like the Bradley Beal part of it, we don't really know how it's going to work out. It seems like it's going to be a big multi-team trade, which I think we knew or had at least theorized. It just feels done. And Jimmy Butler, I mean, you posted a video on either Locked On Heat Instagram or your own Instagram.
Both.
Of Jim. Okay, both. Of good. You're doing good content creation there. Salute.
The whole cross thing.
Yeah, you did. Of Jimmy, was this the last time he walked off the court as a member of the Heat? And like, I think the answer is yes. Like, I think I'm now gonna be like looking at Kevin Love's Instagram and making sure I know what Shams is up to, so I understand like where this is headed.
Yeah, look, I mean, it always was sort of going in this direction. And to me, the way I read that trade from Phoenix was you don't. So the Suns, they trade an unprotected 2031 first to
Which
Utah for which is
that's it.
the
That's an
best
A plus. That is an A plus asset. That is
crown
like a
jewel
gold.
asset, right? It's the
That
crown
is
jewel asset
mwah.
that's out there right
Yeah.
now. And they get 3 less favorable first round picks back. And the way it was put to me recently was it would be like going to the bank, asking for change for $100 and getting like 320s back and being good with it. That's
Yeah.
sort of what they did there. But it was either, can I use this $100 in 5 years from now, 6 years from now, or can I use these $320 bills right now? And that's sort of what Phoenix just did. The only reason you do that and leave yourself that exposed in 2031 with that unprotected pick is if you have a really good sense that you're getting exactly what you want. So I've seen it theorized out there since the trade. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're definitely getting Jimmy Butler. Like, they could take these picks and attach one to Yusuf Nurkic to get off of that contract. And maybe you attach one to another thing and you could get another role player. You could, if everything falls through that you think you might have planned here, but you don't leave yourself that exposed. You don't part with that unprotected pick in 2031 when Kevin Durant will be retired. Devin Booker will be in his mid-30s. Bradley Beal will be probably retired by then. Like, you don't leave yourself that exposed to get off of Yusuf Nurkic's contract, right? You leave yourself that exposed to potentially go even more all in than you already are. And so when I see that come down, even if the Suns don't exactly have all of their I's dotted and T's crossed right now, which obviously they don't because the trade hasn't happened while we're talking, at least in the sense of when we're talking here. But
I do have Reddit open on NBA, just hitting refresh every 3 minutes to make
yeah,
sure
there you go.
like,
So
that we're not totally caught off guard.
Yeah. So, but even if you don't have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, you have a pretty good sense of what was going to be required to dot those I's and to cross those T's. And getting these 3 picks was clearly part of that, right? So now, yeah, you don't have that 2031 pick, which is not as valuable, but a team can take a first to take on Beal's contract. Another team could take now you have a first that could potentially go to Miami, another first that can help facilitate something else in other places, or potentially go to the team that takes Beal, or to Miami if Miami's demanding 2 first-round picks, whatever it is. But now you've got money to share, right? You could kind of spread those $20 bills out, whereas if you just had that one $100 bill, you can really only give that to one team. So, yeah, I think the only reason you do this if you're Phoenix is if you have a 99.9% sense of certainty here that you feel pretty good about getting Jimmy Butler before the February 6th trade deadline.
More on this to come. We may be having you may see Wes and I, or one of us at least, doing some kind of reaction to a Jimmy Butler trade. If this happens in shorter, we'll have to we will be figuring that out as we go here, and we are 2 weeks away from the deadline, so we're in it's now or never for lots of trades and business here at the Just Basketball Show. But Wes, big picture question here, and a topic I developed before we knew this for the show was thinking about the teams that could be that are a little bit older down the line that have been rumored or have talked about or been speculated about making big trades, and there's 3 teams: the Lakers, the Warriors, and the Suns. The question I have for you is this: which of these teams would be best off making an all-in trade? Again, it's the Lakers, it's the Warriors, who don't seem to want to do it, and the Suns, who absolutely are on the verge of trying to do something at the very, very least, if not going to complete something in the next 3 days or a day or whenever it's going to be. So which of these teams do you think is actually best suited to make that kind of all-in, chips on the table, go for it kind of trade?
I mean, I guess it would be Phoenix, right? Given that they've sort of made those sort of first moves to kind of set yourself up for the big trade, that to me is the team that makes the most sense, right? And so, yeah, they're also the team that's most motivated to get something done, right? I think, like, if you're the Warriors and you're the Lakers and you're they haven't exactly exhibited that level of desperation that Phoenix has, right? Like, the Suns are pot committed on top of being pot committed, where the Warriors are still trying to at least position themselves as a team that is okay with being patient. And then the Lakers, let me ask you this, Chris. Like, if you were the Lakers, not to try to take us too far off the path here, but
Yeah.
the creativity that the Suns just showed and taking this 2031 pick and splitting it and turning it into multiple firsts to help grease the wheels on different trades. The Lakers have 2 first-round picks that they can move, the 2029 and 2031. Would you consider taking one of, maybe not both, but would you consider taking one of those and trying to do the same thing? Because the other thing here is that Utah, they had 3 picks in last year's the top 32 of last year's draft. They also had 3 picks in the top 28 of the draft prior to that. They were going to have 3 first-round picks in 2 of the next 3 drafts, and they have multiple first-round picks in basically all of the next drafts. There's too many picks. There's 8 guys on the Jazz's roster that are age 23 or younger. That's too many guys, too much of an infusion of youth. So it makes sense for a team like Utah to consolidate some of these picks and then get a better pick further down the road. And if I were the Lakers, I would be maybe shopping a 2029 or my 2031 pick in a very similar way. If it's not to Utah, to Oklahoma City, to San Antonio, to some of these other teams that are in a very similar position of, yeah, we actually don't have room for all these picks. We don't have room for all these rookies. We need to consolidate here. And if you do that, you split these picks up, and then all of a sudden, if you're a Lakers team that I think can only trade 1 second-round pick, maybe 2, none of them are very good, like you add some extra first-round picks here, all of a sudden, Jonas Valanciunas, that becomes a little bit more gettable. Maybe a guy like even Nikola Vucevic or Zach LaVine or whatever. Name the player. That to me is not even the most interesting part here. But if you're the Lakers, could you draw inspiration from what Phoenix just did, and should you?
I think yes and yes. I mean, it comes on the heels of a report that AD and LeBron have gone. That's from Shams. Have said like, we need to make a move. We need to be aggressive. We believe we are a piece or 2 away from being a title contender. I don't know if I agree with that, but if they believe that and you're getting pressure from those guys, you're probably going to do it. And this is a creative way to do it. Johan Boo has had the link to Lonzo Ball. That actually might be like some second. That might be a trade you could do with some seconds. I would imagine that thing is possible. But if you did like Lonzo and you got Valanciunas and whatever it is, I think that this kind of move becomes more feasible, and I think they should. The Warriors one is the one based on what Steph Curry said a couple weeks ago, which I've never really heard a superstar talk like that, where the way they were talking about the franchise and what they were doing was so in mind with the franchise, and their long-term health in mind. Like, he was pretty damn respectful as far as them not being Pac committed to his window. And if Steph Curry had said in the locker room that night, I have X number of years, I only have a couple years left, I want to chase titles, let's go get guys that can help me win right now, no one would have blamed him, but he took the approach that no one else has. So that makes me think they're the team less likely to do it. In some ways, I think they might be the team I would feel like is probably most equipped to do that kind of thing because they have some of that infrastructure there. The Suns, I think, are going to do it, and I understand why, but I still don't trust it. The Lakers, LeBron's probably got 1 year left, and I don't think he's what they can actually accomplish to me is like an open. I don't really know if Jonas Valanciunas and Lonzo Ball, let's say, is really making them a title. The West is really damn good. The Suns at least can say, like, we have Devin Booker in his prime, Jimmy's a playoff guy, and we have Durant, and like Budenholzer is a really good coach, and it's like we're gonna figure that out. Like, I think they can at least talk themselves into something, and they don't have a choice. The other teams have a little bit more of a choice. The Lakers less, but the Warriors feel like they have kind of an out in some of this. I think my honest answer though, Wes, is I don't know if any of these teams really should be doing this. I think it's more interesting that we have teams that are doing it, but I don't know if any of them are actually equipped to do this kind of trade. And I because I think there is a point in this cap environment with how competitive the league is that some of these things can really cost you in a major way. And I think the downsides are massive to any of these trades, even if I understand the logic of trying to do them.
Yeah, I guess it depends on just sort of what the goal is if you're a team like the Lakers or the Warriors, right? Where, the Lakers, whatever you want to say about the LeBron James experience, and I do think that they kind of shot themselves in the foot and probably cost themselves multiple deep runs in the playoffs with some of the dumb moves that they've made. But they did win a championship, right? And the Golden State Warriors era was wildly successful. The most successful era that most franchises ever had with Steph Curry. And so if this just sort of sputters out without another deep run by either of those teams, you'll look back a few years from now and be like, yeah, those last couple of years were weird, but it's okay. Like, we won a championship with the Lakers. We won a championship with the Warriors. Like, it was successful, and it's hard to argue that it wasn't. With the Phoenix Suns, we're not even close to calling this a success, right? Like, this has been an unmitigated disaster to this point, right? Given sort of early first round exits, not moving past that round in the playoffs, sort of the up and down nature of everything that's gone on there since acquiring Kevin Durant. It's not been good. They're extremely expensive, and there's a lot of urgency there to make something out of this. Now, like, and so I would understand why you kind of make that desperate move of leaving yourself vulnerable, several years from now in order to sort of maximize the immediate term. So I think I do agree with you, right? Where it's like, yeah, if you're the Lakers, if you're the Warriors, you probably don't need to, you should not be acting as desperate as Phoenix is, because if the Suns can't make the most out of this, and I'm not even sure really what that means, but if they can't make the most out of this, this not only sets you back for several years, but it's an embarrassment on the front office, on ownership, on everybody involved here. And it could be potentially catastrophic to the franchise, where if you just sort of let this play out as the Lakers and as the Warriors, you're probably just fine. You're probably just sort of toiling through mediocrity as a fan base for a while, which is annoying, but ultimately doesn't really cost you much in the long term.
The Suns part of it is I was chatting with this in a group text with some friends last night, and one of them pointed out that the Suns, number one, that Suns 2031 pick is as good of a lock for a top 10 pick as you're probably going to get, right? Because on the other hand, Devin Booker will be like 34 by then, and if your hope is that you can keep Devin Booker here for his whole career and like retool around him in some way with cap space as Durant and like Jimmy retire, then like I've heard worse plans for building an NBA team. It's incredibly risky. It's incredibly thin margins, and it probably won't work. But at least I can understand the willingness to just think about Devin Booker for having him as long as you can, because he is a superstar, an All-NBA guy when he's at his best and fully healthy and all that. It's like if you're saying, okay, long term, we got to go for it now, but because we have Devin, we believe in our ability to retool. I kind of understand that, even if it is in this environment we're in with the cap and what teams are going to spend in these basically hard caps at the aprons, it's probably going to create more headaches down the road, even if I can understand like they feel like they have more time, whereas like the Lakers and the Warriors, if they were like, we have 1.5 years left with LeBron and 4 years, maybe 3-4 years left to Curry, we just got to throw all the chips in, I would almost understand that more, because there's your time's going to run out and those guys are going to get old. Booker, you can at least say we can figure this out with him, but you probably also need him to be bought in right now and not get unhappy because you didn't get him Jimmy Butler.
Do you think that there's significant risk here if they don't get, like, whatever happens with Jimmy Butler and Phoenix, that this is sort of it for them and Devin Booker? Because Devin Booker is the franchise, right? Kevin Durant comes to Phoenix to play with Devin Booker. Jimmy Butler comes to Phoenix to play with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, like, presumably here. Is this it? Because if this doesn't work, and then Kevin Durant says, this is not working, I'm out of here. We've seen him do it before. If Jimmy Butler's 36 years old, like, this is the end of whatever this is going to be, probably over the next probably 2 or 3 years. But if you're Devin Booker and this doesn't work, do you just look around and say, okay, well, this isn't working. These guys are on the other side of 35 years old. I'm right in the middle of my prime here. And this team has no way of getting out unless they trade these guys. And if they trade these guys, we're going to take this dramatic step back. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of risk here. If I'm another team, I know if I'm going to throw something out at you, like, I know that the Houston Rockets have been tied to Kevin Durant for quite a long time, but what
they
if
should be
tied? Target is Devin Booker?
It should be Devin Booker. I mean, if this doesn't work, I would say you probably have a year and a half. You have the rest of it. Let's say they get Jimmy Butler on Friday. Let's actually, you know what? I don't want that for us, or you more than me, but I don't want that for anybody. Let's say like Sunday at 2 on a Friday. Wes, I want you to have a nice stiff drink on Friday and get to unplug. That's what I want for you.
If Jimmy Butler gets traded, I'll still have that stiff drink. It's okay. Either way, I'm gonna need it.
We will hop on. You'll do your first pot, and then I'll make you come and do this, and we will each have a glass of neat bourbon on a rock, like just a big cube, and some bourbon, and we'll chat. Maybe I'll make an Negroni. Who knows? What's the Jimmy Butler of cocktails?
Oh, that's a great question. It would be something polarizing, right? Where where I feel like, the Kevin, what's like the most, what's like the Nikola Jokic of cocktails would just be an old fashioned. Like we all like it, not polarizing. It's
He
smooth.
might,
We know what it is.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody just enjoys it. Maybe not even, maybe like a
But
Moscow
you enjoy
Mule.
but I think it's the old fashioned because there's like notes of complexity that if you're a real nerd, you notice it, but you can still enjoy it even if you don't.
Yeah, it's still got the little cherries in there that everybody likes.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jimmy would be like, yeah, it had to be polarized, like maybe a Scotch
Or like
based.
is he like a spicy margarita? Because there's like just like he's got to be something I think that's got a little bit of edge to it, a little bit of bite.
Yeah, I was thinking like a penicillin,
yeah.
like a Scotch, kind of citrusy. So it's got a little bit of that kick to it. Definitely not for everybody. But comes up clutch in the playoffs. I don't know. That's the end of my metaphor. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, we're winging it here. I will make some kind of cocktail when we talk about Jimmy Butler. It's where we're gonna end up. Let's say you get him this weekend, you have the rest of this year to chase a championship. Like this is championship or bust. There's no way around that. Like the Western Conference Finals and losing to 6 to the Thunder is not good enough. They are 10th in the West right now, 21-21. Half game behind the Wolves, full game behind the Kings. You have this year and next year to maximize whatever this is, to get the most out of it. At that point, I think anything is on the table. Like, even if Jimmy has signed a 3-year deal with them in the summer, Durant's under contract for a little bit longer, whatever, like, you don't have that much time. I think you have, like, a short window to get it right. And, like, I think whatever the roster ends up being after all this is going to be the shape of the roster going forward. Like, yes, you'll sign some guys in the summer on cheap deals and whatever, but like whatever you have left, if you keep Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen or whatever, like the rest of your roster is exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be very hard to make trades out. Like you have this one chip left to play, you're all in, and if it doesn't work, then it would not shock anyone. I think if Devin Booker in like a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is like this isn't working.
Yeah,
It's scary.
It is, but I don't know what other options you have right now if you're Phoenix, because this is sort of the only other option would have been just to trade Kevin Durant and try to reboot around Devin Booker. But again, I don't know what kind of patience you would have for something like that. You're going to tell Devin Booker in his prime, the guy that he just helped, like you just won a gold medal with this guy, over the summer, and we're getting rid of him, and we're going to reboot with these 2 role players and these picks. Like, I don't know that Devin Booker is going to be stoked about that. So this is really it, and I do think for the record that Jimmy Butler, if this trade does happen and Beal is out, Butler's in, and now you've got Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Nick Richards with Ryan Dunn, Mason Plumlee, some of the other guys coming off the bench here. It's not the favorites in the West, but that's a much better fit. It makes a lot more sense. Like, that's a better team. And at this point, finding that move that's going to get you from where you are now to on the same level of the Thunder, not going to happen. But finding that move that gets you into the top 6 in the Western Conference and gives you a real puncher's chance at matching up in the first round against any team and maybe winning that round, that's really all you can ask for if you're the Suns. And then who knows what happens? Maybe Devin Booker, Durant catches fire in the playoffs. Maybe you get playoff Jimmy, and all of a sudden you're going for a run here. I mean, we've seen teams make runs, and the Suns certainly have the firepower to do it. So we'll see what happens.
A lot on the line here. It remains the most fascinating, combustible, all over the place situation in the NBA. All right, let's do All-Stars. But first, let's tell everyone about BetMGM.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JUSTBasketball, and you'll get up to $1,500 on a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JUSTBasketball. Then deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JUSTBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Also got to say about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use our link below. Make your purchase. Support the Just Basketball Show. They have all kinds of awesome NBA and WNBA stuff. But if you're an NFL fan and it's playoff season, They have great starter jackets and T-shirts and all these great products for your NFL teams if you're a fan of one of the teams, or if you're just a fan in general. And also if you're an Ohio State fan, which Wes is going to boo, and I would understand it, they have really cool championship gear because the Buckeyes beat the Irish on Monday. So check that out. Link below. Support the show. Wes, All-Stars. We did our East teams the other day. People can look at those graphics. We ran a poll. The biggest snub for that, LaMelo Ball, runaway winner in that poll. We'll do the same thing for this. Who's the biggest snub in the West? So let us know on our YouTube channel by voting in said poll. But let's start with the starters. I thought for me this was pretty easy, and I will admit to you that there is one pick in here that is basically because I want this person to have a starter's moment in the market, and that's Steph Curry. I think there's a case for Anthony Edwards in that spot and maybe even Kyrie in that spot as a backcourt player, but I wanted Steph to me was someone I really, really wanted in there just because I want him to have that starters on the star of the weekend moment in the Bay Area.
You know what? You sold me. I had Anthony Edwards there. It was close between him and Steph. And yeah, that's a good. Like, you went with the feels argument. That's good enough for me. I'll move Steph into it. It is a 3-person. Shea is going to be the obvious starter, and then it's between Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry. There's some other names that we can get to, but those are the two guys that I also sort of came down on in terms of my second starting guard spot. Anthony Edwards has the better statistical argument.
Yes,
I don't think there's any question about that. I would also argue that Steph has been more important to the Warriors. I don't know how much of an argument that really is, but neither of these teams are good. They're within a half game of each other in the standings, both sort of in that play-in mix right now. But imagine the Warriors without Steph. Now, Timberwolves fans could say, I guess, imagine the Timberwolves without Anthony Edwards. But I think Anthony Edwards' supporting cast is way better than Golden State's. So, I don't know. The statistical profiles are close enough that you want to give Steph the nod. And by the way, he's going to be. He's going to be a starter. So, that's fine. It works.
Yes. SGA, as you said, that's a lock. He's going to start. He should start. Not even a question. So he's going to win. He's the MVP favorite. He's been the best player in the conference. He might be the second best player in the world right now, considering Luka's been out so much this year. But he's like a top 5 NBA player at worst. That guy's an all-star starter. It's not even a question.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the best one-on-one scorer in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it's close. If you needed a bucket one-on-one, and I don't know that he's the best offensive player in the NBA. That's not what I'm saying. That's still, to me, Nikola Jokic. And I would even still have Luka when he's healthy as a better offensive player than Shai.
The pull-up game of Luka is such like a differentiator. It's like the one thing Shai doesn't have is that like step back that makes you scared shitless, I think, if you're a defense.
Well, in the passing, right? That's to me what it is. Like when I'm talking about an offensive creator overall, Jokic and Luka, their passing sets them apart from literally everybody else in the league. But when you combine it, obviously, with the shot-making portfolio that they have. But with Shai, I don't think he's ever going to be that level of a passer. He's a good passer. He's fine. But he's not Jokic, Luka, genius level all-time passer. He's not that. But if you needed a bucket and you needed a guy to take that shot and go get a good shot, if you just needed a guy to go score, Shai's the guy. He's the best one-on-one scorer. Unassisted. Michael Pina had this in his column over at The Ringer. He scored 75 more unassisted two-pointer points this year than any other player in the league. That's a really big number. 75 more. That's a big number. And so that just goes to show Shai doesn't have to do it from beyond the arc. Like you said, he doesn't necessarily have the pull-up game that some of these other guys have. He's an okay passer, not an amazing one. But that guy just uses the craziest angles to get to his spots. He kind of throws away the roadmap for, hey, this is what you do. You kind of go out, you go around the screen, or maybe you reject it. You kind of get 2 feet into the paint. You get into this move, that move, spin, turn around, get your. He's like, no, I'll go backwards. I'll go sideways. I'll crab dribble. I'll do this. I'll do that. He doesn't care. He'll do whatever it takes to get to his spot, and it works, right? And so he's a joy to watch. Best one-on-one scorer in the league, and one of your MVP, sort of number one horses in that race. So, yep, number one guy.
All right, I have 2 other guys in the starters list that I think I have as stone cold locks. I've written them down in pen. Those are Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic.
Okay, so you did. So Jokic, obviously, you did have Wembanyama written in pen.
I think he's been like a top 10 player in the league this year. The best thing you could say about Wembanyama is that he's kind of the Spurs rebuild is over. They may not even be like a real playoff team this year, but he's clearly good enough to accelerate. It's time. Like it is go time. Like he is there. He's been by far the like Mobley's been great. You know, Dyson Daniels been awesome. He's been the most impactful defender in the league. I think he's been utterly dominant for stretches. I think he's there, man. I think he's there.
So I had Jokic obviously in pen here, another MVP guy. For these two spots, I would have no problem if you went with either of the two of the three of Anthony Davis, Victor Wembanyama, or Kevin Durant. I would have no problem if you went with either two of those three guys.
Anthony Davis is my other starter, I should say.
Okay, so I also went with Anthony Davis and Victor Wembanyama, but if you wanted to argue, I actually had Durant in over Davis, and then I scratched it out and went AD just because of what he's been doing defensively, and there's a little bit more of a games played thing there that kind of gives him the edge over Kevin Durant. So it's by a hair. It's by a hair, and I don't even feel great about it. But if you wanted to put Durant over either of those guys, I wouldn't have a problem with it. He's been amazing this year. And really the only reason Phoenix is even in the mix right now is because of Kevin Durant.
When I saw them in person in Cleveland and I went to the game on Martin Luther King Day with my dad, there's two things that struck me about the Suns. Well, three. I texted you. The first thing I texted you can verify this to our listeners, that I said Nick Richards is playing like ass. He was awful in that game. It was really bad. Vibes were off with the Suns. The whole energy was just wrong. Durant and Booker came out like way later to the court than everybody else, which I know happens sometimes. It was just like weird to see the rest of the team like warming up and doing layup lines, and then like they strolled out with like 7 minutes to go. And then Kevin Durant is the engine of the team. Booker was pretty bad in that game, but Durant is still Kevin Durant. Like he is obviously not like apex Kevin Durant anymore, but literally the same hallmarks of his best years and the things that make him unguardable are still there. And he's still hyper efficient. He's still really good. Makes incredible defensive plays as well with his length. I think one of my favorite if we were going to do, Wes, I saw some cool shit on League Pass this week. There was a sequence where Donovan Mitchell was guarded by Durant one-on-one, and Mitchell got him got him leaned, went back the other way. Durant, because he's 7 feet tall, he can tell you otherwise, got over with and blocked the shot, and it landed back at Mitchell, and Mitchell was able to throw the ball off of Durant's team and get out onto Cavs with the ball. It was like these two like hyperly different body types, everything, but two guys that are just like absolute masters of positioning, like dueling for a minute. It was really, really cool to see. Durant's still that good, and to bring it maybe to the we were talking about earlier, like if the Suns are like Kevin Durant, if Kevin Durant was like 10% worse than he is right now, I think the Jimmy Butler trade would be it's still a risk, but it would be like even crazier risk if Durant had like fallen off, and it doesn't feel like he's fallen off in such a way that he can't be a guy on a title team.
Yep, well said. So I went Davis and Wembanyama, so we do have the same starters. That's fine. I initially had Edwards in there, but you convinced me otherwise, so just go ahead with Steph, and I feel good about that.
I'm a sap, Wes. I got it. If there's one thing about
it's a great argument.
Get my sap.
So then I would imagine you have Anthony Edwards as one of your reserve guards.
I do.
Okay. Who's your
really
second
good
reserve guard?
Just want to say about Edwards, having a great year, I think, on a team that is just an absolute frustrating mess.
Yep.
He's been awesome. Has improved. I have Kyrie as my other guard.
Me too.
Okay. This is actually where I think it gets a little. I think it can get messy because I have a bunch of guys on the snubs list that I feel kind of gross about, but that's okay. Front court, I have LeBron.
Front court reserves. Okay, LeBron.
Yeah, front court. I have LeBron. I have Alperen Sengun. I have Domantas Sabonis.
Okay.
Wild cards.
Oh, and then your wild cards. Okay.
Those are my front. Who do you have? Do you have the same front court? Do you have Wembanyama in there vis-a-vis because you?
No, I had Anthony Davis and Wembanyama as my starters.
Okay.
So
that's right.
I've got Durant, LeBron, and Sengun.
Okay. Guard you have Anton and Kyrie as well. Okay. So then wild cards.
I had Sabonis and Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay. I have Jalen Williams and Kevin Durant.
Okay, so you moved Durant into a wild card. That's fine.
I have Durant in the wild. That doesn't mean anything. It's just like
no, it literally means nothing. Yeah. So really the only difference in our All-Stars here are who we have in that 12th spot. You went Jalen Williams. I went Jaren Jackson Jr. Why did you go Jalen Williams?
I went Jalen Williams because I felt the Thunder, as much as anyone deserves 2 All-Stars, like they do, that's the best team. He's averaging 25-5, been a really good defender, very efficient, I think has grown as a player. He's just been, I think, at an All-Star level, even if I think Jaren, maybe higher defense, has been incredible defensively this year. I think he's the best All-Star candidate on the Grizzlies. I feel weird not having a Grizzly on there, but I think J-Dub for me with the 25-5, with being on a team that is the class of the league, I think, like Cleveland's going to get 3 All-Stars in the East. It would just feel weird to me, and I know this is not how this works, to have like the best team in the league right now and the over-on odds favorite to be the number 1 seed in the West and the number 1 seed in the league to only get 1 All-Star out of this. So I had to go J-Dub.
You could say the same thing about Memphis being the 3 seed in the West, getting nobody here.
Yeah, it's just in like having like Sabonis over Jaren Jackson Jr. is like maybe a tough beat. The West is brutal. I mean, the West is absolutely savage for picking these. Like none of these are gonna feel good putting these guys on there.
You had Sabonis on yours, right?
I have Sabonis. I had
Okay, I just want to double check. Okay,
he's been really damn been really damn good. Really
double machine. Jaren Jackson Jr. to me has really taken a leap over these last couple of years. He was sort of stress tested last year with John Morant basically not being there in Memphis. Has really developed a nice offensive package, right? Like this was a guy who was essentially just a pick and pop player for most of his career. When Memphis would post him up, it was kind of goofy looking. He didn't have any go-to moves. It was just sort of, I'm tall. It's always worked for me. Give me the ball down low. I'll figure it out. And a lot of times he wouldn't. He would get it on the break or sort of in semi-transition, and he would dunk every once in a while, and that was really exciting. But he's got a real move. Like he's got a package now. Like that guy has really improved as a ball handler, can create his own shot, bails out Memphis all the time offensively, especially when Ja either isn't available or just isn't in the game in that moment. He's been really good, and I think he's climbed the leaderboard in terms of like the best center of the league conversation. I don't know that I'm ready to kind of give you this is where he is, but he might be one of the best 5 centers in the NBA right now. Which I think he was probably just outside of that over these last few years. And then you combine that with what he's doing defensively. I mean, this guy's a reigning defensive player, not reigning, but he's a former defensive player of the year. He's doing all that stuff. He's a linchpin to everything that it is that Memphis does on both ends of the court now. He's been awesome. This is not an anti-Jalen Williams argument. You can't make me do it. I love Jalen Williams. I love watching him in OKC play. I really love those minutes where he's on the court kind of running stuff while Shea gets his rest. Love watching him. Defensively, what Jalen Williams has done too has been phenomenal, especially having to play center during some of these stretches.
Has carried
with
so much
injuries.
with all the injuries they've had.
So
for that.
You will not get an anti-Jalen Williams argument from me, but to me, I think Jaren Jackson Jr. just has to be recognized for what he's done, and the Grizzlies need to get somebody on this.
Yeah, it feels weird to me.
And it's not Ja because of the games played thing, for the record.
Yeah, and like Luka to me is like not an All-Star because he hasn't played enough games. He might come back before the All-Star break, but
yeah. So right now he could. Yeah, so he might. It's still a little gray, right? Like he could, if we wanted to just sort of cheat, we could put Luka on here and then have somebody come in as an injury replacement for him. But it's still, to your point, a little gray area on when exactly he's going to come back.
Yeah. I mean, let me read you my snubs because Wes, I find picking All-Stars in the West to be a brutal, painful process. Here's the guys that I had on my long list as far as snubs: John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Norman Powell, James Harden, Devin Booker, De'Aaron Fox, Ivica Zubac, who I clowned the other day, but then like looked at the case and thought about it a lot, and like really good defender, having a great career on a sturdy defense there. James Harden and Luka. Like, there's a ton of guys in the West that you can make really compelling cases for. There's just 12 spots. Yep. Like, the East, you're gonna have guys that I think are rightfully a little bit annoyed. I think in the West, you can have guys that it's like kind of a travesty. They're not going to get an All-Star for the season. Like, I think that's how deep this class is. It's Jaren Jackson to me.
Mine was Jalen Williams, so that makes sense. De'Aaron Fox was a shout out too. I considered him briefly for one of the first 2 reserve guard spots. He's been great also. So that wasn't Norm Powell too. Like he's been like, it feels like somebody on the Clippers had to make it. Norm Powell is like just missed it. James Harden just missed it. And that's the
If
thing,
Harden,
too. It's like,
if Harden was shooting like a little bit better, he has a similar case issue that I mean I had Trae Young on my All-Star team in the East, but like Harden is right now shooting. Let's see what he's shooting. He's shooting under 40% from the field.
that's it.
If he was shooting 42.8%, which he did last year, he's probably an All-Star.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, the Clippers are good. They're not amazing, and they're not like, okay, so they don't have one of the 12 best players in the Western Conference this year, but they might have like the 15th and 16th best players in the Western Conference this year, and that's sort of why they are where they are, but don't have any All-Stars.
Yeah. West is loaded, man. Where after going through this, Wes, I am like I've been open to this for a couple of years. I think I would
No.
like to see 50. Okay, am I giving out
Oh,
trophies?
wait. I thought you were gonna go conference list. Oh, 15
no.
guys in the All-Star?
I
No,
want
I'm also
15.
against it.
I just like think there's the talent level is like now so high that I think the snubs are becoming really painful.
You know what? That's actually a pretty good argument. You can convince me. You could convince me to maybe expand it to another couple of spots where, maybe not 15, but 14. 15 seems like a lot. Like in the East, if we get to 15, then we're going to be like really scratched. I'm actually okay just leaving it with 12. This is for the best of the best. And
It should-
if I
it
look
should-
back
it
on
should
this,
be
I'm
hard.
not going to feel horrible that Jalen Williams or Jaren Jackson Jr. or one of these guys didn't end up making the All-Star team. Like,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and look, it's. I mean, I saw relatively good cases. I thought from very smart people that I was reading when I was doing this of like no LeBron, no Durant on All-Star teams. Like I understood like what they were arguing for. It's also just like as we talked with LaMelo, and it's a little bit different because these guys are elder statesmen who've accomplished everything you could want to accomplish in the league. It's like you're not going to have an All-Star game without LeBron James while he's in the league. You're not going to have an All-Star game without Kevin Durant while he's not still in the league, right? Like those guys are going to be there as long as they're not hurt. Like Luka would be an All-Star if he had not gotten hurt, and we would be having another hard cut here.
I do think in order to kind of keep the integrity of Luka's All-Star streak alive here, my guess is that he gets in and then
is bumped off.
And is bumped off. So he'll get the little star next to him on Basketball Reference, but then
Yeah.
somebody else will too.
It's entirely possible. I mean, I didn't look at the West voting. All-Star was he? Let's see where
He's
the
getting votes.
third fan vote from the 20th. Luka was third behind SGA and Steph, and Kyrie was fourth. So those two guys are right there. Yeah, I mean, look, and he was having a pretty good year before he got hurt. Like some ups and downs at times, and definitely I think was, as he always is, kind of like you're waiting for him to fully rev it up. But like he's one of the best 5 players in the league. Like he's gonna be an all-star if he's healthy. It's tough. I feel like Jokic, if you were like, hey, Nikola, we'll give you the All-Star, but like you can just like go to Serbia over the break, he'd probably be like, that's fine. We could put someone else who cares more on,
For sure.
Like Jaren Jackson, you get to go because Luka's going to go like play with his horses
Right.
for a couple weeks. All right, let's recap All-Star teams. We have the same starters that are Steph, SGA, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, and Victor Wembanyama. Reserves. Anthony Edwards. Here's the ones we have the same. Anthony Edwards, Kyrie, LeBron, Durant, Sengun, and Sabonis. West then went Jaren Jackson Jr., and I went with Jalen Williams.
That's it.
What?
We're aligned for the most part.
All right, poll, because I think Jaren Jackson and Jalen Williams should not be in this vote in this poll because they've at least made one of our All-Star teams. So who are our 3 snubs that we're going to put in this voting poll?
Let's leave Luka off because of the injury consideration there. So let's go De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker. Would you go Harden or Norm Powell?
Cheekily, I want to do Norm Powell.
All right, go Norm Powell. Let's make ourselves a little difference here. So just go those 3.
Yeah, and then we'll give people the option of other, and they can yell at us.
Ja? Should we put Ja in there? How many games did he end up playing? I forgot. I had looked it up and I disqualified him, but I want to get the exact number again.
He played. I'm pulling this up right now. He has played 25 games this year.
Throw Ja in there.
All right, John Moran. That's the 4th. Those are our 4. Those so vote on our poll, YouTube under our community tab. De'Aaron Fox, Devin Booker, Norman Powell, John Moran. Who is the biggest snub on the Western Conference All-Star picks for the Just Basketball Show? I've been Chris Manning. That's been Wes Goldberg. Probably be back soon with some Jimmy Butler stuff. That feels like we're going to be back sooner rather than later. And if by God, if it doesn't break before then, we'll be back on Monday. WM for agency's up and running as well. So as some signings come in, and there are some interesting rumors and predictions floating out there about where some big name players like Kelsey Plum may go. Maybe we'll get some reaction. I'll get some reaction videos up to some of those signings and movement to get you covered on the W. But thanks again. Please subscribe, rate, review. Shout out to BetMGM. Shout out to Ahmed. Shout out to eBay for sponsoring today's show. Back at you next weekend. Or if Jimmy Butler is a Phoenix Sun, we'll talk to you soon. Cocktail in hand. Be well, everyone.